and welcome to the last of our best of 2021 shows. And this time it's all about music. And I'm delighted to be joined by Fiona Liddell, musician, podcaster, radio presenter, and huge supporter of Scottish music. Hello, Fiona.
Hello, Alistair. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. And how it's going to work is we are going to pick 10 tracks each to talk about, which I found was not an easy thing to do. How about you?
No, it was horrible. No, didn't like it at all. Like even this with my own playlist, I chickened out and just put like 40 or 50 songs in there that I liked because I just couldn't do it. But I've tried my best and I've whittled it down to 10 that are not objectively the best music ever released in 2021, but the songs that I really like and I really click with, and that's what I've gone with rather than any kind of academic approach to it.
Well, that's a great thing. I think that's one is the way to do it. It's the way I've done it as well. But also what I really liked is there's lots of bands on there and musicians that I think it's good to talk about because they've had such interesting years and things like that as well.
I think so, yeah.
Should say that there's a Spotify playlist if you want to hear the music we're about to talk about, which is obviously a good thing. And if you like it, go and buy it and support it and all these things because that's hugely
buy before you buy.
Exactly, that's what it is. And so let's just kick off with your first choice. What is it?
My first choice is I Don't Like You by Anna Layden, who's a Belfast-born singer-songwriter who's based in Glasgow. And I heard her EP, All Part of It, earlier this year, and I just fell in love with it. It's been my soundtrack to most things, to be honest. I just love the instrumentation of it all and Anna's voice. And just her, like the lyrics in this song in particular, I Don't Like You, they're just really kind of sarky and clever and funny. And they kind of paint this image of like I don't know, a really dark corner in a music place or something, and it just kind of ripples out and just this kind of venom that's coming from Anna. And I really enjoyed that kind of atmosphere she's created in it. And it kind of reminds me of like You're So Vain by Carly Simon, that kind of vibe of like a woman who's just had enough. And I like that in a song.
Well, I mean, there was a couple of your choices that I didn't know that well, and this was one of them.
Same with you, yeah.
And it's really nice to go and because you think you've listened to so much and you've still so I had to listen, and it's a fantastic song. And to me, there was a bit of kind of Kate Bush, not just in the songwriting as well, because it is quirky. It's not maybe what you expect. Joni Mitchell was someone else I thought, where you think.
Yeah, Joni Mitchell as well. Yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah, just fantastic. And it's one that I can't wait to listen further. Quite an interesting backstory, as you say. Seems to have come from Ireland, then in Aberdeen, and moved into Glasgow. And great musician.
Yeah, fantastic musician. And she's such a nice person as well. She's one of those ones that I've just posted her song up and then we've just been talking back and forth ever since. One of those people, which is great to always find in the Scottish scene as well. And yeah, I love her songwriting so much, and I'm very excited to see what she does next because it's a fantastic EP. All Part of It. You should listen to the whole thing because it's all great.
So my first choice is Jeshua and Esther. It's from the album Unreliable Narrator, and it's a great example of what's on the album. It's that kind of lo-fi dream pop. There's quite a lot of it about this year and the last couple of years.
It's very popular.
Yeah, I'm thinking also of Community Swimming Pool, who I could easily have had on, Swiss Portrait. Even going a band that's been about a bit longer, Wojciech the Bear, who had an album this year. That kind of, it's almost like Django pop. It's almost a kind of indie from another time, but they're doing something new with it as well. And the way that he delivers, I mean, the lyrics are, they are sung, but it's, just sung. They're almost spoken in that kind of delivery. Yeah. And I think that makes them deceptively simple songs. They sound like they're simple because there's no big production or anything.
Yeah.
Actually, there's something quite interesting going on there.
Yeah, and this is what I hadn't heard of either. I'd heard the name Jeshua sort of thrown about, but I hadn't heard any of his stuff before. But this one, it's the same sort of thing. I listened to it the first time and thought, oh, this is a nice kind of simple song. And then I went through the sort of the lyrics and thought, oh, there's way more going on here. And then I looked at his backstory. The whole album was written when he was working on Night Shift. Is that right? Like last year or something? So it's just kind of added this whole sort of delirious thing on top of it, where it does feel like someone kind of stumbling through a dream or something where they're really, really tired. And I just really like the vibe he's created with it as well. Even though it doesn't really change much as a song the whole way through, that Django pop thing is so, it's suiting for the subject matter and suiting for the idea of it being written on night shift, definitely. So it's that kind of weird deliriousness.
Yeah, it's almost like not quite nightmare pop, but kind of waking dream pop, or something. It's
Yeah.
like a subconscious at work. You're doing something that you're not really perhaps fully engaged with at a time when you think, I
Yeah.
could be doing this. There's definitely that kind of
There's a bit
feel
of that
about it. And I
over.
think the name of the album, Unreliable Narrator, kind of fits in with that
Oh,
feel as well.
yeah. If someone's not quite all there right now, yeah, definitely fits in with that. And maybe that's why the song not changing actually works as well, because it's like the shift not changing and every day kind of being, oh, sorry, that was my mic stand. Every day kind of being the same as well.
Yeah, I think it's because the few songs that certainly I picked, and a couple of years they build. It starts slowly and they build, but as you say, there's a kind of tone or a mood that goes through the song that is really quite interesting. And that was one of the first things I think that's from earlier in the year. That was one of the things I found difficult is. You
Going back
kind
to
of you listen
January.
to so much, you think, what did I listen in January and February?
No idea. They all kind of blend together. There were some songs on the list that was like, was that really this year? I
Yeah.
thought that was about 2 years ago. But yeah, it's just all blurred together, clearly.
And I think, you say that album was written during pandemic, and a lot of them will be a lot of the stuff that we talk about, the tracks that we
Yeah.
talk about will have been as well. But you also think about how that's how we were listening to music too, which totally changes things.
Isolated and just completely alone, yeah, trying to
Yeah.
decipher stuff. Yeah, it adds to your listening experience. Definitely listen to stuff on your own, just going through a list of like submissions or something. It does change how you sort of view a song, whether it just came on in like a cafe or something like that.
Yeah,
You're much more intent on listening to it and really feeling the whole thing, I think.
absolutely. Absolutely. And someone who had a great 2021 you're going to talk about next.
Yes, I am. Yes, my next pick is The Kitchen by Lindsay Clark, who's had a great year. Her album has just, rightfully so, received so many accolades and so much support from people. I actually saw her live. It was was it my only gig? It was my only gig this year, I think, seeing Lindsay Clark at the Hug and Pint, which she kindly invited me to. And it was brilliant. It was just the atmosphere was amazing. There was loads of her fans and family and friends just all singing her own lyrics back to her. And I think just capping off the year she's had with that, like the joy in her face was just, really heartwarming to see. And the song itself, The Kitchen, I think the reason why this is still my probably favorite of hers is probably because, as we were saying, it was the first song I'd heard by her at all. Like even apart from her electro pop years, I hadn't heard any of that either. This was my introduction basically to Lindsay Clark, and I just fell in love with her voice instantly. And the production and the instrumentation by Bovine is just it's masterful. I really really love the sort of folky weirdness of it all, and the DIY element of the album as well. I think it's just they've just done a fantastic job, and I'm just so glad that this album's getting the recognition it deserves, really, because it's just such a fantastic piece of music.
Well, I'm going to be posting my 10 favorite albums of the year quite soon, and I don't want to give it all away, but I love the album. I love what Lindsay does.
Yep.
And if she's listening to this, I hope you take this in the right way. There's a kind of world weariness to her voice. Do you know what I mean?
I feel she's from the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly. That she's lived other lives, and it's kind of she's channeling them or something through. I just think it's incredible. And you're right about the lovely kind of DIY nature of it. I think the last track opens with her kind of hitting a wrong note or going,
so out of tune. Yeah, she did that live as well. She's like, "Shall I do the bit?" Oh, it's so out of tune. So she did it live as well.
And definitely one of the breakout artists of the year. I wasn't really aware of her stuff before this, but what a fantastic album, and a proper album, where each song kind of feeds into the other one and there's stories being told. I just absolutely love it. And I think The Kitchen was probably the first track I heard from it as well.
Yeah, it was our first single from it, I think, as well. So yeah, it's just such a strong introduction to just what the album was going to be, and she's just done an amazing job with just blasting onto the scene really with all this stuff.
Yeah, and as you say, it's just been so well received, and rightly so.
It really has been, yeah. I can't wait to see what she does next, to be honest. Live, it was just such this lovely, warm atmosphere, and she clearly has a lot of love and support around her, and I just, hope that nurtures even more great music.
Yeah. Hugging Pint's interesting. I've been to see a few bands there where Everyone in the room seems to know the words to every
everyone
song.
knows the words.
Yeah, and I think
it was mad.
It's really weird. I went to see Rest there, and I'd seen them play, and everyone was singing along to every track. It's usually a sign that there's something going on here, something is going on here. If people
it's like a really intimate venue,
no, exactly. So the next choice, people watching and listening will think there's something underhand going on here.
This is a bit awkward.
But I have to say, I had picked my choices, people, with a couple of changes for doublers that we had. I picked my choices before I asked Fiona to be involved, because it is Geffergeist and Nuclear. It's me trying to say nuclear again.
Nuclear, yeah.
So, I mean, Geffergeist is, you explain who Geffergeist is.
All right. Geffergeist are an Edinburgh-based electric pop duo kind of thing. It's me and my producer, co-writer, co-everything, Neil Ray. We started releasing in 2020 with our song Graceless, and Nuclear was our second single, released in January this year. Another very early one. It's weird with Nuclear. It's like, it's neither of our favorites. Right. We like the song, but I think with every new release, we're like, no, this is the best one. Yeah. So Nuclear, we've kind of, because it was so early on in the year, I think we've kind of forgotten about it.
Is that a song was that released this year? Did we really release
it? I know. I think it's like an older song as well. I wrote it like 3 years ago, and that was released this year. And then everything else that's happened this year, I think it's just kind of been forgotten in the ether of January 2021. But even with the end of the year, it's been nominated for lots of like singles of the year and stuff, and we're just sort of sitting here really surprised. We're like, oh, it's nice. Didn't realize it had that big an impact.
I wonder, because that's interesting hearing, of course, when we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's only natural. I mean, I talk to a lot of writers, and they'll say, well, actually, I'm kind of concentrating on the next book because I'm doing the publicity for this one. Yeah. But I wonder if it's because it was the first time many of us heard Geffergeist. It was your first.
Possibly, yeah. No, it was our second single. We had Graceless first, and then Nuclear was our second one. But Nuclear was probably more in the vein of the dark sort of sadness that we bring to our songs. Whereas Graceless was very kind of upbeat and nice and groovy. This one was much more sort of, we're all gonna die. So
yeah, well, and again, maybe it was the time we were listening to it.
Maybe, yeah. It was right in the middle of the pandemic. There was like no hope. Christmas had just been ruined.
Christmas had literally been cancelled.
I think it was released the same week as like the longest, most depressing day of the year as well. It's like some Monday in January at the end of the month. I think it was around about that time. So it might have just been very clever of us to release such a horrible song at that time.
Just pitching it perfect with people's algorithms.
Oh dear!
But it's one of these songs that does. It's a song which kind of builds, as it moves along. And I did want to ask you about the harmonies on them, because they do seem really complex and rich. Well, I think so. Anyway.
Thank you. No, thank you.
And how did you basically work on it? Were you working on it during lockdown, or was it recorded before?
It was all recorded, I think, during lockdown. We have done a quick vocal take just before, and then everything went and shut down. The harmonies, though, that is always either myself alone or me and Neil working together in this flat. Like, we record everything here. It's all just in here, and we just do layer after layer after layer after layer for hours on end of different harmonies, and we layer it all, and we'll go back and we'll do it again. I'll try and do as much as I can in one breath, then we'll do it again. And I think this one, I might be wrong and Neil might be mad at me, this one had about 200 or so tracks in the session or something, and most of that was vocals and layering and getting this sort of ghostly, colourful, with loads just grey colours, basically, a grey rainbow of just sad sort of wailing sounds in the background and lots of little effects and stuff. And it was just throwing stuff and seeing what stuck. I knew in my head what I wanted it to sound like, and Neil knew we needed loads and loads of layers to make it sound quiet, weirdly. So it wasn't just like one voice. We needed like lots and lots of very quiet, ghostly, reverby wails to make it sound like the sort of death effect, I guess, is what we're trying to go for with that one.
Because it's so interesting to hear that kind of a piece of music that sounds so complex is done in one place. with two people doing it.
Yeah, all done here.
Behind is magic. Here. It's behind the magic, people.
I know, behind the magic is not very exciting.
I had visions of you having a full choir in the front room or something.
Oh no, it's just me. It's just me. Yes, I would love to have a full choir. That'd be amazing. But no, it's just me, just sort of going on repeat in a loop to make it big.
Well, it does sound amazing, I have to say.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be on your choices. That's very, very nice. Thank you.
So, your next choice.
Yes, my next choice is Skin by Finn Anderson. And Finn Anderson is someone who I think myself and Jack supported him at a venue in Glasgow. I can't quite remember, but we heard his set and we were just blown away by his musicianship and his voice as well. And just every song just kind of grabbed me in the way that I said that all these songs click with me. Like it's just non-stop. Every time Finn Anderson releases a new song, I get very excited because I know I'm going to find a new favorite song. Basically, it's just one of those artists who's just got a place in my heart, basically. And Skin by Finn, hearing that this year, it's such a vulnerable song, but it also reads like a poem at the same time. He's managed to combine this real emotional vulnerability and telling us about just stuff he's gone through in his life, with this poetic way he writes lyrics and just the imagery as well. It just feels like a kind of folky tale at the same time, whilst also exposing this vulnerability with masculinity that I think a lot of men struggle with at that kind of age, or even when they're younger than that. And I think Finn's just crafted this beautifully. Like it's just exposed it. It's like a painting almost to me about this song. Just feels that well crafted.
It's a fantastic song. The album Into the Arms of Ghosts is it's a brilliant album. As you see, every song, again, it's one of these albums where every song feeds into the other one. I think 10 tracks on it, and you know, it's just the perfect length and the perfect album. But this Skin really shows Finn what he does really well, and just it's poetic, and it's at the same time fragile but still strong as well. It's got that kind of weird dichotomy going on there, because you know,
strength from weakness or strength from vulnerability, sort of thing.
Exactly, and kind of putting it out there, you know. And Skin's a great title for it, even so.
It is,
you know, there's that kind of
both thin and
and you know, that was one of the gigs I was supposed to see him at the Glad Cafe just recently. Unfortunately, he decided to cancel when everything was kind of changing, and I'm so gutted, and I'm sure I'll get to see him live. You know,
I think he's rescheduling soon for next year. But it's incredible live. We both, like Jack and I remember just both being absolutely in awe and about seeing him and just hearing his songs for the first time. It was a really magical just night to be a part of. It was amazing. And
he's got a voice which is perhaps more rare than people think, where it encourages you to listen to what's being sung. You know, it's not,
there's a presence to
you get singers and it's just, you know, you kind of enjoy that they're great singers or whatever, but he really kind of almost makes you lean into and listen to what's being said.
He does, it's like a storytelling sort of aspect to his singing that, again, as you say, not every singer has, but he can really just take you through the tale so wonderfully.
Yeah, it is, I suppose, almost in a kind of folk storytelling tradition that in the way that he's working. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, every single song has a sort of narrative to it. There's almost characters, and all these places he's describing are just gorgeous. Well, at least they're gorgeous in my head, but Finn's helping you paint that image with just the storytelling in his voice. And yeah, I think he's probably one of my favorite artists of the year. Actually, yeah, definitely one of my favorite artists of the year.
Well, one of my favorite artists of the year I'm going to talk about now is Rebecca Basman. On this track, Jules of Thought, she's joined by the saxophonist Harry Weir and the brilliant vocals of Pay, who I wasn't aware of, P-A-I-X, if people are looking for that. Yeah, Scottish jazz. In the last few years, I've really got into my Scottish jazz music, partly because it's just, you almost can't ignore it. It's so good.
Oh, yeah, it's such a vibrant scene. Right,
it really is. Just a few names: Matt Carmichael, Graham Costello, Marianne McGregor, Corto Alto, Kitty. I mean, Georgia Cecile.
The sextet as well.
Yeah, absolutely. The sextet. And I could have spoken about any of them, but what Rebecca Basman's done on her album With Love from Glasgow is mix her love of jazz with her knowledge and love of dance, electronic dance music, and kind of brought them together in a way which is just really, really exciting. I would just love to. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's. I spoke to her recently. We're going to put out a series of Scottish jazz podcasts in the new year, and she's one person that I've spoken to, and just to hear, you know, how she absolutely is steeped in jazz and you know, buys albums like obsessively and things, but also has been resident DJ in the Sub Club and has, you know, tours Europe DJing and now has introduced the jazz. She says in Scotland, it's now expected that she's going to play jazz music in her kind of DJ set, which is really interesting. And with Love from Glasgow shows that, and it's not, it's kind of like what was going on with acid jazz in the early 90s, I'm going to say, Jazz Nova. And
I wouldn't know about that.
No, you would not. There'll be a few references that you will not be getting.
Right.
I apologise that.
I'll just smile and nod.
It's that mix of kind of dance music and jazz, and kind of bringing it together perfectly that Rebecca Basman does so well.
This was someone I hadn't heard of as well. I'd sort of seen the name kicking about, but I hadn't heard of it, and this was the first track I'd heard by Rebecca Basman, and I was just struck by the performances on the instruments, like Harry Weir. It was just stunning. And as you say, when I was researching for the podcast, just seeing all the work she does within the Scottish jazz scene and the dance scene as well, I was blown away. Just another person, you're like, how are you able to find time to do anything?
Yeah,
so
I know.
busy. Amazingly busy woman. Yeah, I'd love to see a Sub Club set or something like that from her, because she's clearly got amazing taste and is a very, very good producer as well. I love the drums on this track as well. I thought that really stood out to me.
I think
and the vocals, as you say,
plays drums on it, I think.
Oh, right, okay.
You get some very good musicians, as you say.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I might be wrong about that, but I know he plays on some of the albums, so he could well be the person that's got the drums on that.
This is how little I know about jazz as well. I was listening to the song expecting a lyric at some point, and obviously that didn't happen. Just expecting some kind of words, but it just didn't come through. And I'm kind of glad it didn't. It just painted, again, this sort of colourful image in my head of just, all these different brushstrokes and stuff that are not quite adding up to anything, if that makes sense. Like kind of modern art sort of, like it could be anything. It's so open to interpretation, and I really, really liked that, the style of implementation, and just the slight builds and slight dropouts just seemed like different colours coming in to paint whatever you want in the listener's head. I quite like the openness of the track.
And it's another example of what is happening with Scottish jazz at the moment is there are collaborations, not just with other people, but into other genres. You know, Fergus McHugh, kind of folk thing going on, and then you've got more ambient stuff with Graham Costello and Kevin Cahill. You've got kind of hip hop stuff going on with some people, and then you know there's all sorts of really interesting. And
that's how new genres get created, really, is by mixing them. So having that happen right in our own country is very exciting.
And I think we'll talk about collaboration a bit more later, because there's been some amazing stuff going on this year. But the next one of yours is someone I didn't know at all, so I'm excited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. Oh, it is Give Them What They Want by Zarin. Have you not heard of Zarin, really?
No, I haven't. It's
wow. All right. I'll pass on your email to her, because I think you really like her stuff. Zarin is an Australian jazz sort of singer, songwriter, has a massive past of doing music in Australia, and is over here with her new EP. I think it's called Sleepless. I might have to double check that. But Give Them What They Want was, again, the first one I heard by her, and it was just so unique. It's just such a sort of strange, I think I described it when I reviewed it as like if someone's running away from something. It feels like that kind of, the driving is always there, and it feels like it's building and building and building. There's this weird anxiety to it, which I really like, and this strangeness to it that I really love. Her voice as well is, again, another, like Lindsay Clark, sounds like it's done everything. It sounds like an old soul sort of singing this new music. It reminds me a bit of, again, Kate Bush sort of style, a little bit like who did This Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us again? You'll know. There we go. Reminds me of that. And just the strangeness and the kind of journey is going on as well. But as Zarin, I think you'd really, really enjoy the rest of Zarin's music if you get time, because
But
it's just fabulous.
I've written down here, I listened to the track before we started, and what a great song it is. I
Yep.
thought, I'm going to check out the EP as soon as we're done, because
Definitely.
it sounds so good. And there is a kind of, again, a kind of jazz aspect with this electronic thing, but it's just so kind of assured.
It's confident as anything.
Yeah, there's a spoken section, and then there's the basses to the floor. And actually, in a weird way, reminded me of Prince in the way that it would take the chances of doing something just really different and just be like,
something off the wall.
This is what I do, So
exactly. Yeah,
I'm
she's just so assured in her
out.
sound. Yeah, so assured in her sound and just what she's creating now. It's just It's just one of the most unique artists that I think I've come across this year. Zarin's music is just so, as you say, assured and just so clear in what it wants to do. And if you're a listener, you either get on board or you get out. Basically, I think
exactly.
You have to just that's it. She's like, this is it. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, well, I'm still going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Brilliant.
So my next choice is Poster Paints and Number One. And it's a real great indie pop song, almost like classic. It crashes in like the Jesus and Mary thing. And then you've got the kind of unmistakable vocals of Carla J. Easton, come in. Poster Paints of Carla J. Easton and Simon Liddell. No relation, I'm presuming.
No relation, no. Well, not that I know of.
I just thought I would check. But he was in one of my favourite bands, Olympic Swimmers, back in the day, who, just loved what they did. And with this song, I think you've got two people who clearly are immersed and love the music that they're making.
I was going to say, like, Carla's work with supporting female Scottish music over this last couple of years has just been really inspirational. She's just, a figurehead of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. For people who don't know, we did a podcast with her earlier on in the year to talk about the film Since Yesterday, which, she's helping get involved with, and in lots of other ways, of course. And this just felt like, we've had the solo stuff, the stuff with Teen Canteen. There just seemed to be a freshness to this song, which I don't know whether it was just working with someone new. All the stuff sounds great, but it was just, as I say, it's classic pop song. It's under 3 minutes long, which is a kind of old school way of saying classic pop song.
That is radio friendly.
No, it does all those things exactly.
I did think when I heard it, I thought it was from the 90s, I think, a little bit in my head, or the 80s or somewhere. It reminded me of sort of kind of Velvet Undergroundy with like cross with the Bangles or something. It was that kind of feel to it, I thought. And it's nice to hear a sort of refreshing, because as we say, we've got a lot of great music out this year from like jazz and a lot of great electronic music and all this other stuff coming on, lots of great pop music in Scotland as well. But hearing something like this that does sound like it's from like another decade, but as you say, sort of refreshed and revived in a new way to sort of celebrate it, almost to celebrate that side of indie pop, was really, really refreshing to hear. And I'm very excited to see what they do next with Poster Paints.
Yeah, because they did get a lot of attention as well. So it will be great to see if there's an album coming or whatever. And I hear they're very good live too. I haven't seen them, but
I'd be like to see them live. I mean, it's two giants of the Scottish music scene coming together. So it's gonna be good.
Exactly. So what's your next choice?
My next choice is Borderland by Man of the Minch. Had you heard of Man of the Minch before?
I'm
surely.
Big fan of Man of the Minch.
Yeah, good. Okay.
Seen him live.
This is on your list too.
This would have been on my list, but so this was doublers. Maybe not this track, because I think it would be so difficult to pick from the album. There's just so many amazing tracks. You tell me why you picked this one.
For me, it's like another blend. It's another blended one of two genres. You've got lots of heavy electronic percussion and synths in there, but it's combined with, well, one is their fantastic voice, and two, the incredible fiddle on it. I'm a fiddle player as well, so anytime there's any, I'm surprised not every single one of these tracks has violin on it, but this one in particular, just the emotion sort of portrayed and the skill with this fiddle player, whose name I've sadly forgotten. I did know it when I reviewed it. It's just it's just one of those tracks that, again, it just gets stuck in my head, and I try and play along to it, and it's great fun, and I have so much fun listening to this track and just trying to pick it apart. It's just, again, another builder. It builds so
Mhm.
strongly as well, from the beginning, and then just sort of explodes into this just strange electro folk fusion, and I just love the sound of it. I just love this track.
Yeah,
Love
no,
all the tracks, but this is my favorite.
it's almost electronic, and it's almost trad, isn't it? It's almost traditional,
A little bit, yeah.
which is great because it's quite a brave thing to do.
Mhm.
Man of the Minch, as I say, I've seen him live, love the album, and
Oh wow.
I saw Pedro Cameron playing with Broken Chanter. He was in Broken Chanter's
Oh
band,
okay.
the
Mhm.
CCA, which was a fantastic night. Yeah, it feels. I've known Man of the Minch's work for a wee while, and it feels like
Mhm.
this is really a culmination of what they've been working to, and
Oh
it's a great album, I think. And yeah, this is a great song, and he's also surrounded himself with great musicians. Broken
yeah.
Panthers on a track, Rachel
Mhm.
Sarmani's on a track, and Finn
Oh wow,
Anderson
yeah.
that you just mentioned.
Oh yes, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he's also on a track. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so it's another one where it's like a bit like Rebecca Basman. Who are the best
Mhm.
people we can get to play on this record?
Yeah, let's collaborate and make something better than, or something that's going to be absolutely fantastic with both of our skills rather than just doing it all on your own. I love seeing that. As you know, I did the cover to cover thing
Yeah.
earlier this year, and it was very much in that vein of like, if we just bring these great musicians together, we'll make something amazing. So I'm happy to see stuff like this where collab is so prevalent right now in the Scottish music scene.
No, no, absolutely. And the fact that it's happened when it's been difficult to see anyone. So people have found a way
Yeah.
to kind of do it. Yeah.
Yep.
Right. The next one for me is Finn and Jordan Phillips and Carry the Weight. And Finn kind of does everything: sound engineer,
Mhm.
producer, musician. Finlay Mowat is a name, and again works with great musicians. He's collaborated with Berta Kennedy on a track,
Mm.
Gus Harrower, and Jordan Phillips, who have fantastic vocals on this. And I
Mhm.
think his background as a drummer, and I think you can
Yeah,
almost
I think you're
tell on
right.
this track because it's the rhythm that kind of
Mhm.
takes you right through the song. It reminds me, again, here's some old references going to happen, but stuff I was
Okay.
listening to in the kind of late 80s, early 2000s, like Zero Seven, Lamb,
Oh
Nightmare
yeah.
on Wax, that kind of, they would be playing in cafes and bars,
Yep.
that type of stuff. And there's something about this, but it doesn't just wash over you. It's something you have to listen to. It kind of demands to be
Mhm.
listened to.
It's
I just think
engaging, yeah.
it's a lovely, yes, engaging. It's a lovely
Mhm.
piece of music.
This was nearly on mine as well. This was nearly on my list as well, so I'm glad you picked it. I was like, oh, phew, it's on here anyway. This is, yeah, one of probably my favorite tracks of the year as well. It's just the shuffly drums under the whole thing. It does remind you of a sort of like, this could be on a cafe. It reminded me a bit of Georgia Smith's early stuff as well.
Mhm.
And Jordan's got one of these voices that just sounds really effortless, which I'm very jealous of because I always have to try. She just sounds just so chill about it and just has this like smoothness to her voice, and just it feels like it's just sort of coming out of her super naturally, and it's just a very very chilled out gorgeous song. And the chorus is probably one of my favorite choruses of the year, I think, as well.
That's absolutely right. I hadn't thought about that, but
Mm-hmm.
when she sings,
Yep.
it is as if there is no effort going in, as if like
Yeah,
that's how she speaks as well.
that's it. It's again a speaky singing sort of thing, but it's just so just cool and chill, and just, yeah, super jealous. I could not pull that off at all.
It is a great track. In fact, when I was
Uh-huh.
looking at tracks to include, to go back and discover a few that I had kind of
Mhm.
forgotten a little bit because they were earlier in the year, and you go, oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
really, really good.
Yeah, it's quite nice to go back and just like look at the very, very early stuff that you've kind of not forgotten about, but you come back around to it and go, oh gosh, yeah, that was so good. That was a
There
great
was a
track.
reason why I loved that in the first place.
Hmm.
And so your next choice.
Yeah, again, this might be this might be accused of bias here a little bit, but again, as I said at the start, these are the 10 songs that click with me and
Yep.
that I like the most. They're not objectively, they're not the Rolling Stones 500 singles of whatever year they happen to choose. This one is The Emperor by Jack Hinks, who, yes, is a very close friend of mine. But The Emperor I picked in particular because I think it's a turning point in his songwriting. for me, because again, like lots of musicians over lockdown, he got really into producing and recording his own stuff, whereas he was used to doing it with a band in a studio and all that stuff. And as a result, he's managed to do much more experimental stuff, I think, this year. And this is probably the pinnacle of that, I think, Emperor, because it's just him, again, in his bedroom with a trumpeter from across the world, just sort of, that's all you have in it. And I think it just shows how much his confidence has come on and how much his songwriting has expanded as well. And this one is much more, don't want to, throw him under the bus, much more complex than his other music as well, I think. And there's something about it that it just gets me a bit emotional just listening to it. And it is probably because I know him, but this is just, for me, it's his strongest song, and it's on my top 10. And that's it.
No, it's not just you. It's not just
okay,
you,
good.
because I've written here would bring a tear to a glass eye.
Oh, there we go.
So we all get.
All right, that's nice.
That is emotional, and so this was part of Jack's kind of
Kintsugi series,
grief series.
All right.
And I think I agree with you. I think it's an amazing piece of songwriting, apart from anything else, and I think some of the most thoughtful, he kind of made and released some of the most thoughtful music of the year, really.
Definitely.
And I say that, I mean, not just that he's been thinking about it, but it makes you think about it as well, You think,
if you knew the amount he thinks about it, God. Such an overthinker. Wow. No, but I think you're right. It's a thoughtful, he's released much more sort of thoughtful and more, the music has more layers now, I think, than it did at the start of his career. And it's exciting to see him just mature as a songwriter in that way, I think. And
are you still doing your podcast with him?
We'd like to, because gigs are back. We're both very busy. But we do want to come back, possibly in January when we're a bit quieter, and just sort of recap what we've been doing over the past year. Maybe get a couple more guests on as well, because we really enjoyed having guests on for the last couple of episodes we did during lockdown. Well, if lockdown comes back, then we'll be back on. So nothing else to do. So Line Check will be back if Omicron comes back.
There you go. Well, there's silver lining to everything. Okay, so my next choice, I had to have some Scottish hip hop on because, again, it's had an amazing year. You get Nova, you get Country Fruit, so we'll talk about it later. Suzanne, Bems, Washington, Word, SOS.
Chef,
Yeah, a Chef.
Lotus.
Older school guys like Ed G still releasing stuff. It's been quite incredible. But in terms of a collection of songs that came out, it was Stanley Odd's.
Yeah.
Odd. I think it was in the final 10 of the Scottish Album Year Award. I think it was.
So. Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
And for me, it would have been a worthy winner. I think the winner was worthy. It would have been a worthy winner. It's got great songs on it, and it's a great album. And I think sometimes we don't think of great Scottish hip hop albums. You think of maybe EPs or singles being released, but to have a songs in this way was really good. And each one, I mean, I picked Undo Redo as my.
I nearly picked Invisible Woman.
Well, and I could easily have done that or others as well, because there's such a strong collection of songs.
They are, yeah. They're so strong. They've had a really fantastic year, Stanley. This album is like, it feels, again, like I was saying with Jack, kind of like a pinnacle or a milestone for them, because it's such a great collection of songs with loads of different political issues. And again, Undo Redo in particular was quite a good choice, I think, for this year of, just having this sort of, again, monotony of life and just the things mental health wise we're all kind of going through right now, when it's just all, fairly monotonous.
Yeah. Everything comes together on the track, but on the album as well, in that the lyrics, the musicianship, the different styles as well, that they're playing with. It just makes for a really fantastic listen. And I could have picked a number of tracks.
Any of the tracks.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Dave Hook was actually my lecturer when we were in Edinburgh Napier together. God, that must have been. Oh, how old am I? It was about 7 years ago now, I would say. I remember I was telling him he was in a rap group, and we were like, "Oh yeah, sure." No, he's in a hip hop group, and it's fantastic.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
I suppose you don't think when you get your first lecturer coming up, and you think, "Well, this guy." Yeah, we did a podcast with Dave at the when the album came out as well, and it was really interesting to hear him talking about the academic side of things. And right.
He literally seems to really enjoy his job, which was good because there was a few who clearly didn't. But he does enjoy his job.
He certainly seems to. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my next choice is Cocoon by Annie Booth, who's released her album Lazy Body last month. Last month, yeah. Again, it's another one I've just had on repeat. It would be in my albums of the year. Her and Lindsay Clark would both be in there, as would Stanley Odd as well. Cocoon, again, I've picked ones that sort of, I guess for me, I like to see singer-songwriters develop, and this feels like a huge development for Annie Booth, and just because she's always been a fantastic songwriter, and all of her music's been like this kind of subtle and fragile. This feels much more like sort of bursting from a cocoon. It does feel much more rounded and much more like, no, this is my sound and this is what I want to do. Assured, that was the word, yeah. And the whole album feels like that. She's just sort of stepping into it and going, this is what it is now. And it's fantastic. It's so complicated and layered. And the string arrangement by Rona McFarlane on the album is nothing short of sublime. Another one with strings on it. I'm sorry, I can't get away from it.
That's fine by me.
It's fantastic. I love Cocoon, and just the whole album as well. It's just so well crafted.
If we were talking about EPs, then Rona McFarlane's EP, I would have spoken about, because it's a great collection of songs. And you're absolutely right about Annie Booth. I think she's one of the best singer-songwriters around, and I think this just works as a whole. The album works as a whole because everything again has kind of come together on it. But I do love our songs, as you say. There's an honest. We had her on the podcast quite recently, and she was a great guest, and she was so open and honest about her music and about the doubts she has about being a performer and all of these things. And I think the honesty comes through in the songs as well.
It does. There's an almost quietness to her voice. Something I sort of feel like listening to it that she's maybe quite a shy person. I don't know her. I don't know, but it sounds kind of like it's the inside of a quiet person's sort of mind and what they're going through a little bit. And I think as a performer, I'd like to see them live, because I think they may have a similar struggle to me, where they're like, I don't know if I've got the sort of confidence to do this.
You should definitely listen to the podcast.
Cool, I will.
I think you'll find it very interesting.
I will. I definitely will.
I would agree. I would have chosen one of Annie's if you hadn't, because I think. And what's interesting is she talking about the times that we listen to things. When I was speaking to her, she went, "Well, people hear Cocoon and immediately assume it's a lockdown song, and it isn't. It was written ages ago." But it's just the time that these things come through. But
it is, yeah. But it works for both. I think it works for the lockdown, and it works for when she wrote it as well. For me, it's definitely a song about sort of not being quite ready yet. I think so. That works for both. I think not ready for lockdown to end, or not ready to be the full person you're going to be. I think both of those.
And I've seen Annie live a few times, and she has this ability, even though it is quiet, people shut up and listen. It's almost hypnotic that people really want to hear what's being sung. Which sometimes is quite a difficult thing to pull off.
Definitely having that presence and that sort of being able to capture an audience like that. Yeah.
So the next choice for myself is a constant follower and Merry Dancers on TV. I didn't see that many gigs once lockdown had finished. I kind of chose a few, but this is one I really want to go. And they had their album launch at the Glad Cafe, and it was just fantastic. Great collection of songs. Going right back to when we were talking about Jeshua, that kind of less is more production, don't throw everything at it, to keep it kind of underplayed so that the songs come through themselves. Another great album, but for me, this was the standout track on it. The music, the songs are allowed to kind of breathe, if that's the right word. You're allowed to, it gives them space rather than being kind of drowned in too much production. Was this something that you knew? Constant Follower?
No, I'd seen the name Constant Follower, but I hadn't gotten around to listen to this album yet. I do really want to after hearing, because I listened to the Mary Dancers on TV before this, and I'm a bit floored by the fact that I've not managed to hear this for some reason. The song itself, it just seems to, it reminds me of like Nick Mulvey, if you know Nick Mulvey, I think that's his name. A sort of acoustic singer-songwriter, I think from New Zealand, who does that kind of thing where it's like very quiet and subtle, but the songwriting and the storytelling in it comes through really well because there's not much really going on in it, if that makes sense. And the Mary Dancers on TV, I think, achieves a similar thing where you can hear the brilliance of the song, as you say, without all the bells and whistles, basically. So I'm excited to check out the full album, and I will. It's on my list now.
The album's is Neither Is Nor Ever Was.
It
is a great collection of songs. Yeah, fantastic.
I'd be curious to see it live, actually. Yeah, as you say, the Glad Cafe is a great venue as well.
Yeah, it was the perfect place. It was busy but not too busy, and it was one of those nights as well that it was but maybe only the second gig I'd been to, and that's my kind of local venue anyway. And so you bumped into people that you hadn't seen for ages, for like a couple of years. You suddenly realize, you know. So it was just it was a wonderful night and a good reminder of why we miss live music and why it's really important when it is back. Okay, number 15. This is another great choice.
Oh wow. Yes, this is Pariah by Catherine Alley. Catherine Alley is another one that I didn't know much about until I think I saw a bit of her set at Hidden Door, and then checked out Pariah after that, and the music video for it as well. If you haven't seen that, it's really, really emotional and very brutal as well in how it sort of tells the story of the song. Pariah is a sort of commentary on the injustice suffered by refugees at the hands of prejudice, and the pariah angle that Catherine very cleverly puts forward is not the refugees who are the pariahs, it's actually the people who are persecuting them for being different or not from here and for any kind of issue, and she's done it in such a clever way. I think Catherine Alley as a songwriter is another one who can use her skills to highlight these important issues in a really exciting way. Exciting, not that prejudice is exciting, but she manages to create a really emotionally driven and clever song with this at the heart of it. And I think using your platform to do that is nothing short of admirable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's one of the most interesting, and I've written down exciting, I think that is musician around, because you know it's in terms of what she's done in her music, every release is different, although it sounds like you know it's her. You know, it's like, this is Catherine Alley, but there's very different things going on. There's different sound being used, different instrumentation happening. What she writes about, as you say, she takes very seriously. I've seen her live a couple of times, and she's a great live performer. You know, it's absolutely mesmeric. And she uses, you know, sometimes there's a bit of film or there's dance or there's, you know, it's someone who's really
other elements
embracing kind of being an artist or being, you know, or working in art or something like that, which is this is another song that builds as it goes along as well, to crescendo, and it kind of suits the subject matter, as you say.
Yeah, the sort of under the anger underneath sort of brimming or something like that, and then it just eventually just explodes towards the end. Yeah, I just love a build, I think. We're discovering here. Love a build in a song.
You're right, though. There's an anger to it, a righteous anger. I mean, absolutely. That it's almost kind of barely contained, and then as it builds, it kind of goes. I haven't seen the video. I must go and check the video out.
Definitely check out what you're saying about her sort of really embracing being an artist. That video is a good example of that, because I'm pretty sure she had a really heavy hand in the imagery that's put across in the direction as well, and it just suits the song really perfectly. It's quite simple, but it's very vulnerable as well, and it definitely paints paints a picture of the story of the song excellently. So yeah, Catherine Alley is one of my favorite artists all over of the year.
absolutely. So my next choice is White Novels in California, and you know I've been talking about lo-fi production and understated production, but every now and again I do like a big number.
You like a bit of it.
Throw everything at it and turn it up to 11.
Epic is definitely the word.
And that's what's going on here. It's a big pop song. I guess as well, it almost feels like it should be blaring from a car radio on a summer's day.
Yes.
That sort of thing. I do like White Novels, what they've done before. Interesting pop band. Quite a kind of, they like to use the production, and that's clearly there. But this, for me, is the favourite moment, just because it's kind of full on in that way.
Yeah, it's absolutely full on.
And this was White Novels were a band I think formed in lockdown, or formed it during the pandemic anyway, and to have managed to kind of get these, I mean, for someone who's not a musician, you probably know that the behind the scenes you can do that, but for me,
there's wee pockets of time where it was slightly lifted restriction wise, we can go into a studio.
Yeah, you can go into a studio and do the way they used to do it. But I just think I'm interested to know what you think of this song, because it is just my big pop number of the
number. I hadn't heard it before. That was the first I'd heard it, was researching for this, and I think you're right. It sounds like they've just thrown everything at the wall, and it's worked really well. I think they'd be a great band to see live. Listening to this, I think live there'd be this huge sound. I think, and it's a classic move, but I absolutely love a dropout before the final chorus. It just adds to the drama. Yeah. It just really adds to the epicness of that final chorus and that final lift. And it's definitely a car radio song, one that you would just blast, one that we would probably blast on the way to like a gig or something, I'd say. And I've got a weird thing about songs like named after places. I'm like, well, you better gone. So when I saw it, I was like, well, I hope it's about California. I don't think it really is in a huge way.
It sounds like it could be played in California. I think maybe that's the thing. You can imagine. I was thinking about Boys of Summer or something like that. Kind of thing, top down. Yeah, it just kind of speaks to
soundtrack to California.
Yeah, exactly. But you're probably right.
That's a great song.
Your next choice is very different from it.
Sorry?
Isn't it? It's very different.
Yeah, it's very different.
It's a great track, by the way, and I love it. But what I'm saying is, you've got all this huge thing going on, and then we've got something quite different.
Then we got this. This is The Deep Dark by Goodnight Louisa, who's someone who I've been listening to quite a lot this year. They've released a number of tracks from their upcoming album, which I think is out in January, which is a name I've forgotten, which is not very good of me. But it's coming out in January, and The Deep Dark is her latest single, I think, from that. It's just brilliant. It's in terms of electronic pop writing, and just in terms of the catchy melodies, I like the sort of complex catchy melodies she puts in this. It reminds me of bands like Ecuador. This is a bunch of non-Scottish bands I'm going to list. Ecuador, bit of London Grammar a little bit as well, and again Kavinsky sort of thing, where it's just apparently the song is about 3 years old as well. It's another one that's been written ages ago that has gone through many, many different forms and is now finally in its final release form. And I think that actual wait time of the experimentation has really helped this come to fruition and culminate in the song that it is now that you hear on the release. She's just an incredible songwriter. I really just love how she crafts her words, the sort of dark and sort of dingy imagery she paints as well. I don't know why that sort of, I think she sings about a roundabout or a traffic cone a couple of times, and it's just such a relatable yet sort of dark and kind of grimy songwriting that I really, really like about her stuff.
It's interesting, as you say, that it was written a while ago, because again, it feels like a song of the time of now, The Deep Dark is as good a explanation of what's been going on as anything.
Definitely.
It's a lovely, moody song. I've just realised what I've written down here. I've gone, it's a song with the music, the vocals, the lyrics, and everything just works together. And then I'm thinking, that's what the song is.
That's a song.
That's what the song is.
It's definitely a song.
What insight.
Aye.
But it is, I mean, it's a good, you're right about the other stuff that she released as well. The songs are fantastic, really interesting, quite varied too. And to write a song about Diana, Diana as well, it shows a kind of bravery in a way to kind of be so specific about such things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah, sometimes for some songs I find like if you have a really specific subject matter in mind, it's kind of the opposite of like jewels of thought for me, where there's that openness to interpretation where you can
yeah,
take anything from it. Whereas this is like, no, this is what it's about, and you're going to be thinking about that whilst you're listening to the song. It's part of me sometimes when I hear songs that are like, this is about this, I'm not hugely into that. Sorry, because I like being able to take what I want from a song, of like sort of
yeah,
the death of the artist sort of thing. It should
yeah,
be kind of on the listener to take what they want. But with this one, or with Diana as well, just having that in mind, it just really added to it for me, rather than took away from my experience of listening to the songs.
yeah. No, I totally agree. So the next one for me is Saria and Nothing. And then I'm always kind of looking for something a bit different. I mean, I like the things that I like, but it's always good to discover something different. And Saria kind of does that with every release they have. You know, first time I heard them, it was kind of electronic, almost dancey, with those kind of bits of hip hop going on. But this track, Nothing, really kind of blew me away. It's so stripped back, and it kind of allows the vocals to shine, I think, in it. Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of hits something emotional in me, and I'm not entirely sure what it is. And I think if I dig too far, you know, there might be tears, and neither of us want that. But it's so, you know, sometimes you hear a piece of music and you just have a kind of emotional reaction to it, and you're not entirely sure why that is. And that's what I get with this.
That's led to a lot of my picks as well, is just the emotion that I feel when listening to it. And this in particular is another one for me as well, because Saria, I first came across them I think last year, and they were also involved in the Cover to Cover project, and they just did such a fantastic job on that. That was like, I need to find out who this person is. And I've followed every release since. Nothing is another build, as you say. It just builds from a very quiet start to just this really emotional, huge climax of the vocals. And I've written down that Saria's got such a way with just minimalist lyrics. Like, there's not a lot of them,
Yeah.
but they can say 1,000 words with not very many words at all, if that makes sense. And just the way they express it in their voice is just, yes, it's absolutely just spellbinding, I think is the word for Saria.
That's exactly the word. There's something kind of I almost said like a primal scream, not quite like that. It's not, but you know, there's something primal, there's something, you know, it's kind of natural about
raw.
it. It's not raw, exactly, which makes it, which I think probably explains the raw reactions to it as well.
I think so too. The sort of animalistic upset that you get from listening to this song.
And such a great musician. I mean, I can't wait to see what happens next year, if there's stuff going on next year, because as I say, all different, very much looking forward to that. Number 19, and we were going to talk about collaborations, and I think this is a good example.
This is my favorite collaboration of the year. I think this is Dragon's Jaw by I can never say it. Post Cool Prom Queen and Conscious Root, which was from their album Music for Hyper Capitalists, another word I can't say, which was released earlier this year as well. And it's one of myself and Neil's favorite releases of the year. Post Cool Prom Queen have kind of, since we came across them, they've been kind of like a huge inspiration for Geist, and a huge inspiration in what we want to achieve with our own career. And Dragon's Jaw as a release, the whole album is, as you say, it's like Scottish hip hop has had a fantastic year, and Post Cold Prom Queen's album has really highlighted loads of great MCs that are about in the Scottish scene right now. And if you're a fan of Scottish hip hop, this is the album to listen to, because it's got everybody on it. Everybody's on there. But this one by Conscious Root, it just shows you exactly how prolific proficient a rapper Conscious Root is, and just his lyrical ingenuity with anything he writes. It's all so well thought out. There's so many sort of puns, which is an odd word to use. Lots of wordplay that is just really, really clever. He's one of my favorite rappers. I don't have many favorite rappers, but he's one of my favorites.
He had an incredible year. Again, someone we had on the podcast earlier in the year to talk about his life in music, which was fascinating to hear about anyway. But he did his own stuff, but also he does collab. He's a fantastic collaborator with other people, you know, and
works very well with others.
works well with others. Yeah, absolutely right. And this was a great example of that. And Post Cold Prom Queen, you know,
Yep.
they're just a fantastic band, and you know, all the stuff that they've done, I found, and again, they try different things, they do different things, they do
Yeah.
albums that are kind of soundtracks to movies not yet made, and the hip hop album was a great thing. So, well, let's just try and get everyone on the one album and show what we do. Yeah, in fact, it's something I must go back to now that we're talking about it, because I haven't listened to it for a while, and it was absolutely superb.
It's a great story as well. The whole, and also very appropriate for the time we're living. I think the sort of anti-work movement that's going on, this sort of job interview, this horrible futuristic job interview, is such a clever sort of and a very relatable, just story to tell through an album. I think it's very very of the times and very relevant to what we're going through right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, Gordon and Lily have this, you know, it seems like they just work so well together in terms of the ideas that they come up with. It's always a perfect thing that they offer you up, you know, whether it's the design or, as you say, the little inserts with the voice interviews or whatever it is. There's a kind of level of perfection. Is that the word? What? Yeah, there is that kind of thing, detail.
It's like a new take as well.
Yeah, detail, lots of detail and everything that you just go, yeah, this is perfect. And then they'll go and do something different.
Completely different, you know? Off the wall, yeah.
So we've actually got to the last choice, believe it or not, to be honest. And it's Dot Allison and Zoe Bestel and Can You Hear Nature Sing? So these are two of my favorite singers anyway, coming together on a beautiful song. And I hope that they do more stuff together, because I just think it works so well. The album Heart-Shaped Stars is a great album. I think it's one of the best things Dot Allison's done, and that's saying something. She's had an incredible career. But this, again, is the standout track for me, and I think just having Zoe there as well just kind of lifts it to a different level.
I agree. I think I did review this one back when it first came out, and I remember when I first heard it, the sort of intimacy of the two voices being on either side of your headphones, kind of like they're whispering to you and inviting you to sort of take a minute, just be still and just don't disturb the nature, just listen to the nature. And I just thought that intimacy they've created with that was, for the subject matter of the song, really, really just important, and it adds so much to your listening experience. And as there's little decorations, some instruments just come in and out briefly, kind of like a bird just going bloop, and then that's it, gone, that kind of thing. I think the whole crafting of it, again, is really clever. It does paint this image of like a sun covered wood or something with just birds singing and everything sort of growing and flourishing.
And as you say, they both got voices where you have to almost metaphorically lean into the speakers.
Yeah.
They invite you kind of into to listen hard. I mean, I should say that I think Zoe Bestel, in terms of lockdown and putting on, weekly gigs and things like that, has had a great time doing that and keeping the thing. But I love the album. A big fan of Dot Allison's anyway. And yeah, this just seems like it's a really hopeful record at a time when you probably need a hopeful record, I think.
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Fiona, we have come to the end of our tracks of our year, as we say. Thank you again so much for doing it. It was an absolute pleasure.
No problem. It's a pleasure for me too, getting to revisit all these songs that we've had in 2021. It's been a great year of Scottish music. It really has. It's been stunning, and I can't wait for next year. Lockdown or low lockdown, we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And before we go, I think you should tell people what you've been up to and what you're doing. You've got, your follow. I've forgotten the follow now. Is it every Saturday? Is it every Saturday you put a new?
Yeah, every Saturday I review 3 songs, but I'm putting a slight pause on that for now, just because things are sort of kicking up a bit with my own music and my own just music career, really, which is good, but I definitely need some time to just recharge. I'll still be posting 3 songs, but it won't be in a video format probably. But it'll still be in the Shout Out Saturdays sort of umbrella term.
Shout out Saturday.
And
I was going to say,
yeah, that's it.
shout out Saturday.
Follow Fridays. Nope.
Yeah.
Shout out Saturdays. That's it. Currently, I'm finishing up the Geffergeist EP with Neil, which is called So Far, and that should be out in January. But we'll see what happens with time and Christmas and everything else in between. And that's pretty much it for now. That and going home for Christmas.
Well, remember, folks, that there is a Spotify playlist if you want to hear, and I'm sure you do, all the music that we've been talking about. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Fiona, have a lovely Christmas and New Year when it comes.
You too, Ali, yeah.
And that goes the same for everyone listening. And we'll be back in the new year with someone completely different. Cheers.